Hello, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Michael Rubenfeld. This is a channel where I talk about my experience of being a Polish Canadian Jew who grew up in Canada, but now I live in, everybody, Poland! That's right. Good for you. Thank you. I hope you had a great Christmas. I know I had a great Christmas. What did I do on Christmas? Nothing. Nothing. I didn't do anything because I'm a Jew, a lonely Jew. I would be happy, but I'm Hebrew. Oh, Jews, Jews. If you've never been to my channel, welcome. Thank you for watching it for the very first time. If you are someone who likes to watch my videos, thank you for coming back. I appreciate it. Not everybody does, and so you are one of the reasons that I'm still making these videos. I want to talk today about something that's actually really important to me and something that is a big part of my life here in Poland. I've hinted towards it in some other videos, but I've never really talked exclusively about it. And it is an organization called Festiwalt that I run with my wife, Magda. Now, we began Festiwalt about 7 or 8 years ago in this very room that we're all sitting in right now. Well, I'm sitting in and you're watching me sit in. But, you know, if you want to believe that you're sitting in here with me, that would be nice. Hi, how you doing? Me, Magda, and our friends Maya and Jason, we're all sitting around a table talking about the Jewish Culture Festival in Krakow. Now, the Jewish Culture Festival in Krakow is an incredible festival that's been around since 1988, so the year before communism even ended. A group of Polish people started the Jewish Culture Festival in Krakow, and it's now become one of the most popular festivals in Europe, if not the most popular festival in Europe. Our feeling was that the festival was focusing on the celebration of Jewish culture, which, of course, as Jews, we celebrate. I celebrate myself. What's not to celebrate? What we felt was lacking was a conversation around some of the more complicated topics, like the Holocaust. And not just the Holocaust, because that's not what we were interested in talking about, but certainly what it means to exist in a post-genocidal space, which is what Poland is. Now, for Jewish people, it's truly a post-genocidal space because a genocide was committed against the Jewish people here, wiping out almost all of us here, which is quite intense. And this is not to say that non-Jewish Polish people weren't affected, because of course they were also affected. However, the main difference is that Polish Jewishness, as we understood it, ended in Poland, whereas non-Jewish Polishness did not end, it continued. Everyone was affected, however, the culture continued on. Of course, it's changed a lot. It's now become far more Catholic than it ever was. But the point is that when focusing or thinking about Jewishness in a post-war, post-communist Poland, it is confusing. It's confusing because what does Jewishness mean in the context of contemporary Poland? Given the context is one of, 1,000 years of Jews in Poland, the Holocaust, which ended all of that in a brutal, traumatizing way, then communism, and now here we are in 2023, well, depending on when you're watching this, it could be 2024 already, and Jewishness is once again rising from the proverbial ashes. But how do we define Jewishness in the 21st century in Poland? Now, this is a very important conversation because When I think about Jewishness in different contexts, it really does mean something different depending on which country we're locating Jewishness in. So, for example, Jews in Israel or Israeli Jewishness is very, very specific and rooted in Israeli narrative, whereas say Jews in Australia are very different and very specific. Jews in Canada are very specific. Jews in America are very specific. Jews in the UK are also very different. The differences can be tracked to just migration, who's migrated to where and when and why. For example, Jews in the UK who have been there since before the war. There's a line that didn't end. The Holocaust didn't happen to Jews who were in the UK. But for example, in Canada, where I'm from, a lot of the Jews there are people who descend from those who survived the Holocaust, immigrated to Canada, and Jewishness took on an identity based on that historical context. Some similarities in Australia and America, of course, and then there's a large Jewish community in places like Argentina. Anyways, you get the picture. The point is that here we are now in Poland, and Jewishness really only restarted post-communism. And when I say Jewishness, I mean actual Jews being Jews in Poland. Of course, it continued to exist post-war right up until 1968, when the majority of the Jews were forced to leave. And from 1968 until the end of communism, although Jewishness continued to exist, it was very difficult to be a practicing Jewish person, to have organized Jewish community. So there was very little of it. So organized Jewish community really only began again post-communism. And the Jewish Culture Festival started at a time where it was, in a way, trying to re-expose Poland to Jews again. And when I say expose, I'm not talking in a dirty way, okay? So get your mind out of the gutter. There has been a place where people can be exposed to Jewish culture. But what the Jewish Culture Festival doesn't do is it doesn't create a contemporary Jewish culture, mostly because they're not Jewish people who are running that festival. And so we felt that as Jewish people, what we wanted to contribute was a platform, a kind of laboratory per se, for Jewish culture to try and start to understand itself in a 21st century context. Now, what does that mean? That's a very, very good question. We don't fully know what it means. As an artist, for me, the most interesting art always comes out of the most interesting questions. And one of the things that I have loved so much about living in Poland, one of the reasons that I wanted to come and be here in Poland as a Jewish artist whose roots are here, is that the question of what that even means is so fascinating to me, is so unanswered in my brain and my body, that being here and getting to have the privilege of asking that question is a gift. And it also felt like a question that really needed to be asked, because the way that I was seeing a lot of people understand what Jewish culture is wasn't as nuanced as I felt, as I know that it can be. So for example, one can be an atheist or a Buddhist and a Jewish person, and that's okay. Whereas I think in Poland, most people think that if you're Jewish, you have to have a certain kind of relationship to God, or you have to be Orthodox or something like that. And that's really not the case in terms of my understanding of Jewishness from where I'm from. But at the same time, my version of Jewishness is not necessarily the version of Jewishness that wants to live here in Poland. But in order to answer that, there can't be one person answering that question. And we really felt like that it was important that there was this platform created where Jews and non-Jews could ask that question and try and respond to it. So there are many different examples of how we're actually asking those questions. And I think they're all really interesting, but there's enough to talk about over the course of several different videos. So I'm going to start periodically featuring some of the conversations, some of the art projects that we've been focusing on. So we began by running a yearly art festival at the same time as the Jewish Culture Festival. It was this period of time during the year where a lot of people were focused on Jewish culture and wanting to experience it because of what the Jewish Culture Festival has done for this time period. So the Jewish Culture Festival has its own program. The Galicia Jewish Museum always has its own program. The Jewish Community Center in Krakow has its own program. And we made the decision to start our own program. And we called it Festival because it's a kind of alternative program to the festival. This is a fun fact. Every program that we made during our first year happened in our living room. Now we don't do programs in our living room anymore. Sometimes we do things, but when you've got a child, it makes things more complicated. One of the really interesting things about our festival is that it began as a festival and it's turned into a year-round arts and activist organization. So what we really also understand is that as we are in the midst of contributing to the definition of a contemporary Polish Jewish identity politic, there are systemic issues in and around memory practices and even kind of identity practices, Jewish identity practices, that we felt the need to also have conversations about. It doesn't always make us popular because when you're sort of trying to infiltrate systems in the hopes that we can encourage certain things to change, people who are maintaining those systems are not always happy that other people are trying to change them. But we do notice sometimes that there's systemic anti-Semitism that needs to be talked about or even understood, but it's never in a way that's trying to tell people that they're bad. Because we also are lovers of Poland, of Polish people. We are all Polish people, people born inside of Poland and outside of Poland, who have a deep love for this country, have an interest in things becoming better for everyone and more inclusive for everyone here in Poland. And I'm going to be talking about how we work as activists, how we work as artists, and how we very often use art and activism as a kind of one integrated approach to having conversations about contemporary Jewish identity politics and memory practices in Poland. That is my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward to some of these upcoming videos. And I look forward to being with you again in the near future. I love you all, and goodbye.